Hey guys, it's John with ReelBlue Custom Rods, and today we're going to learn about applying gold leaf to your rod builds. So where you can achieve this type of look right here, which is a great unique look. It's a great way to add character. It's a great way to make every rod you build unique. Even if you continue to use gold leaf on all of your rod builds, each one of them will be unique because the way you lay the gold will be different. Today we're going to lay this gold leaf, and I've already prepped this dowel here that's going to simulate our blank. And we're going to do the gold leaf over a dragon scale wrap to give it some depth. So could you lay the gold leaf directly on the rod and just have a smooth gold leaf appearance or a gold appearance on the blank? Yes, of course you could. But by adding something like a dragon scale, like you see here below it, that's going to help give it some depth, especially when the light hits it. It will reflect, at different angles because the thread, the raised thread below the gold leaf. So the first thing I did is I went ahead and I laid out my dragon scale pattern with some size D nylon pro wrap thread. It's a red color. If you do not know how to lay out a dragon scale wrap with thread, you can see that link here to a video in the upper right hand corner. And that video there will show you how to lay this out and the things to consider. So once you have your dragon scale laid out, I am only really focused between here and here, the last blue marks. And down here it gets kind of wonky. That's because I didn't have any markings, but really what I'm only focused on for this is between the two blue marks. So this blue hash here and this blue hash here for this tutorial. So the first thing I want to do is I am going to go, once I have my dragon scale layout laid down on the blank, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and apply some finish. So I've already mixed up some Flex Coat finish. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start applying this to the rod. And I'm just doing this by hand, as you can see. Where I'm turning it. And so I'm just going to kind of rotate. And I'm not laying this on thick. I like to lay it down a little thin, cover up the threads really, and that's about it. If I were doing this under power, that would probably be a little bit better. That way when you're spinning your blank at a higher RPM, it's going to help level out and smooth out that finish, because here you really only want a very thin coat. But you can do this by hand and be just as effective as if you were doing it under power. So I'm just laying this finish down. Let me know down in the comments block if you've worked with gold leaf before in the past. Or if you haven't, and then if you haven't, let me know why not. Is it something you just never thought about? Is it something you're a little nervous about trying? Seems a little too advanced for you? Let me know down in the comments block what you think. If you think it's advanced, well, guess what? You are correct. But just because it's advanced doesn't mean it's something that, a person that's only been building a rod for a few months can't try. That is definitely not the case. Doesn't matter how long you've been building rods. You can try this at any expertise level that you may be at. So again, I'm just turning this. And the reason why I like to just add the finish kind of in a straight line and turn the blank instead of brushing it this way is I don't want to mess up my dragon scale layout. I don't want to force those threads in any direction. So that's why I just prefer to do it this way until I get the thread on there, or excuse me, I get the finish on there and it starts to seep into the thread. All right, so we're moving right along. Almost there, guys. And I think you guys will be really pleased with the look. I know there's a lot of other people that have done great jobs and great tutorials in teaching how to use gold leaf. So hopefully I am able to do a great job like those other people have, if not better. All right. So again, please feel free to let me know what you think in the comments block about this as we kind of go through it. And if you have questions, feel free to ask a question. I know we're not live, man, but you can just go ahead and write a question in the comments block below. And I will answer that question as soon as I can. And I'm pretty good about answering questions in a timely manner. The next thing that I want to talk about, and I'll talk about it again a little bit later on as we get into the actual application of the gold leaf, is all the things that I am using to apply this gold leaf. You can find link to them in the description below and where you guys can pick those items up. And so I'll have everything listed here that you need to make or add a gold leaf to your custom rod build. And all those links will be down in the description block. All right, we're almost done. Just a few more lines here, really. And again, I am not laying this on thick, right? I want to be careful to not lay a super thick coating of finish on. There is a reason to the madness. So I really want to just be very, I want to have a very light hand when it comes to adding this finish. And I just want to put a very light coat, just trying to, fill in the squares, if you will, or the scales created by the thread. I'm just trying to fill those in and then get that thread to soak up the finish so we can start creating our pattern here. Okay, so I think I'm got it pretty good here all the way down. So now what I'm going to do is I like to just take it and turn that rod and take any excess finish off. The idea here is I want this to dry, or excuse me, when this is dry, I want it to be almost, a little concave. I just want the red thread to be raised, and I want that finish to be, be a little concave between the pieces of thread. So that is why I'm not laying it on thick. We want this first coat to dry completely. This first coat of finish to dry completely before we move on to the next step. So I'm just, again, going through here, taking my time, removing any excess finish. All right, almost done. All right, so the next step here is going to be to apply this, put this on the dryer. We're going to let this dry up and cure completely for about 24 hours. Once it's dry completely, then we will want to move on to the next step. Again, I apply my finish and then I remove as much of that finish as I can. I just want a very thin, light coating on here. And then once it's dry, we'll move on to the next step, okay? It's good here. It's good here that when this is dry, we basically, if we run our finger across it, we want to be able to feel the individual raised pieces of threads as we rub our fingers over it. That's what we're looking for. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this on the dryer. And then once this dries, we'll pick back up where we left off. All right. Okay, guys, welcome back. So the finish has dried completely and cured up. And as I run, like I was saying earlier, as I run my finger over the top of it, I can feel each one of those threads are raised up because I did such a thin coat. The next thing that I like to do is I like to come in and cut away all of the remaining thread with a razor blade. Okay, so now what I want to do, now that I got that thread cut off, you can see I've started some black thread here. Again, size D thread, just because the red dragon scale layout thread was a size D. And this is just regular black nylon thread. And so I'm just starting this wrap, and I'm just going to wrap over to cover up these pieces of red thread at the end that I like to cut off. And so I'm just kind of tying in my wrap now. And you can use any color that you like. I just recommend you use a color that's going to complement whatever type of gold leaf that you're using. And if you're unsure of what kind of colors would complement it, I've got a whole video that I've done here on color theory basics. You can see that up here in the upper right hand corner, and you can take a look at that, and I'll show you how to use a color wheel and how to figure out which colors to use when you're trying to choose out colors for your custom rod builds. So I'm just wrapping this over really quickly. Okay guys, so I've started the same thing over here on the far side or the right side. Just going to go ahead and wrap off. Just going to go ahead and wrap off, you know, the ends of these threads that are sticking up from where I cut them off on the layout, if you will. And again, I'm going over them a little bit and then just kind of carrying it on, you know, off the edge. I'm going to go ahead and tie that off. Give it a few wraps over that. Dress that up and come back. We're going to cut that end off, that tag end or working end. All right. And then that's it. So I've just basically, you know, I removed the thread after the ends where I had my epoxy where it was dry. I came in and wrapped off those ends to give it a nice clean appearance. And then the next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to move into getting and preparing the surface to receive the gold leaf. Okay guys, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to apply some adhesive size. I use the Speedball Metal Leaf brand. Again, links to these products are down in the description below. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and open this up a little bit. And then we're going to apply a thin coat to our dried epoxy. So I'm going to go ahead and start applying this to our layout here, right up against the edge of that black thread. And what I want to do is I want to have a thin layer of this. I do not want this to pull. So I just applied some. And then I'm just going to go in here with my brush, move it around, thin layer. I want to make sure I get a good coating on the entire surface of this dragon scale layout wrap. And as you can see, this goes on kind of milky white. And then what we want to do is about 30 minutes, depending on what brand you use, it's about 30 minutes for a drying time, but it will turn clear and it doesn't dry completely. When it dries, it will have a tacky feel to it because that's how it's going to hold your gold leaf once you put the gold leaf on there. So again, I'm just spreading this out. I'm not using a lot of this. A little bit goes a long way. Again, you don't want it to pool. So I'm just kind of pushing and pulling it from different areas where I've already got it applied and then moving it over to other areas. Again, I don't want it pooling up. So I'm just kind of spreading that out everywhere. I can grab a little bit more. And then I'll come right here, start right on the edge of this black thread, and then start pulling that away from the end there. Continue to spread this out. Again, you can see where I haven't applied it yet. Again, it goes on milky white. And in about 30 minutes or so, depending on the brand you're using, it should dry clear but be tacky. And again, you want it that way. You want it to be tacky. I'm just pulling all of that size over. Maybe just a little bit more. And now what I'm doing is I'm ensuring I have a good coverage over the entire area over this layout for this dragon scale. I want to make sure I've got size everywhere on there. I want to make sure I have a good, good coating. Good light coating, but covering everywhere that I plan to have the gold leaf applied to. Again, at this point, I'm just spreading it around. Let me put the cap on the size. And again, I'll just continue to move this around. I think I'll actually even dry off my brush just a little bit. Because again, I don't want it pulling up, but I do want to make sure I have a good coating everywhere. Again, I'm just going in here, taking off some of the excess stuff where I think it's pulling up at a little bit, and then drying off my brush and then coming back and grabbing some more of it. And then again, ensuring I have a good coverage on the entire surface that I want to apply gold leaf to. So I think I'm looking pretty good here. So the next thing I want to do is I am going to put this on the dryer and let it spin around because again, I don't want it pulling. So I'm going to put it on the dryer, let it spin around for about 30 minutes or until it's dry. And then we're going to come back and move on to the next step. All right. All right, welcome back, guys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using Leaf gold metal here. As you can see, it's this color, this pattern down here, and you'll see it better here in a second. But I am going to use this Variegated Leaf, and I'm also going to use a round size 2 gilding brush, as you can see down here, to help me apply it. And then, of course, my finger and a dry paper towel. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab a hold of this sheet. and lay it on our work here. And then what I'm going to do is come back with my gilding brush, and I'm going to brush that on. And if I see it creating a gap, I'm going to take some pieces off here in a second and cover that gap. Like right there, I have that crack. And so I like to use this brush first to apply it. As I turn the rod. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and make sure I get it added. I can take some pieces off and add it to where I had that crack at. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to turn, use my finger, push that down, and then lift up any of the sheets that I can salvage here. Place that back down onto my sheet there, and I can continue to use my finger and any of these extra pieces to cover up where there may be any gaps that were created. And one thing to note, you do not want to have a fan on. You want to control any of your airflow in your room where you're working at, because this stuff is super light and will blow everywhere. And as you can see, I'm just grabbing part of the gold leaf from where I wasn't using or where it's not tacked down, and using it and coming back and covering other pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close up this book that I have. Set that off to the side. And then I'm just going to use my gilding brush to help clean that off. And then anywhere it comes off, I want to come back with my brush and just tack that on. And then now what I want to do is I'm just going to clean this up. So I've got it all cleaned off. I'm wiping that all off the best I can. I used a vacuum cleaner, kind of pick it up. I want to take a look and make sure there's nothing, no open spots that I missed. So all I'm doing is taking my gold flake and covering up a couple of these spots that were missing. So that extra pieces that I had on the side. All right, so I think, oh, got a miss spot right there. And I'm just kind of lightly using my gilding brush and wiping it away. And then making sure that we're getting it all covered up. And I think that looks good. So that's what we have right now for our gold leaf. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add our color preserver. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and apply some color preserver to the gold leaf and to the thread wraps. And what I've done in an effort to not contaminate my container of color preserver, I poured a little bit into a plastic shot glass. It doesn't take a lot. And then that way I'm not, when I'm brushing the color preserver on, if I get any gold flake on it, I'm not dipping it back into my color preserver container. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start applying this first to the thread wrap portions. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently add this to the dragon scale. And it doesn't take a lot. Does not take a lot of this at all. It does bead up a little bit, as you can see. But I will come back and take care of that in a moment. So I'm just going to lightly brush this on. And you can see where it's beaded up a little bit. And I'll come back and move that around. But the first thing I want to do is I just want to make sure I run a little bit over the entire portion of this. And I want to do it very delicately. I'm not trying to apply too much pressure with the brush to the foil or to the gold leaf, excuse me. And I don't like to brush too hard where I'm moving everything around a bit, with the brush. So I'm just, again, going kind of quick with this. And then once I think I've covered everything, then I'll come back here. I'm going to dab off my brush. Just get a little bit. And then what I want to do is I just want to move that around where that color preserver beaded up a little bit. And I'm very lightly touching the gold leaf with this brush. I'm not pushing hard. I'm not applying a lot of pressure. I'm barely grabbing anywhere that this color preserver might have pulled up a little bit or beaded up, if you will. I'm just grabbing it with a brush ever so lightly. and just moving it around. And as you work with the color preserver, as you work with it, it will starting to thicken up a little bit, and it won't bead up. Like you can see some of these beads from this color preserver. So I just take a little bit of time, barely touching the gold leaf with my brush, just enough to move that color preserver so it'll start sticking all the way across that gold leaf. So this could take some time. So if you got any questions about this portion, about what we're doing here, just leave them down there in the comments block, and I will respond and give you guys an answer as I see them come in. Yep, so getting a little bit better here with these pulled up spots. And again, you're just taking your time. It's a little time consuming here, but it's time that's well spent. Trust me. You're just trying to get this color preserver to dry evenly on your gold leaf. And then as time goes by and as you move it around, it gets a little thicker and it'll start to evenly coat your gold leaf. So just take your time. Don't try to rush it. Don't try to move your color preserver around too fast and start tearing your gold leaf. Just slowly, barely, very lightly touch the color preserver on the gold leaf and move it around, trying to get an even coat on your gold leaf. And you will be very happy with the results at the end. And I think that's it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get this on the dryer, and we're going to let this dry for an hour. And then we'll come back and then we'll get into the next step. Okay guys, welcome back. So we've taken our blank here off of the dryer, dried it for about an hour or so, and let that color preserver cure up. And then what I've done, I've gone ahead and mixed up some flex coat. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to apply one coat to this, and then get this put over onto the dryer, and then get it on the dryer to dry. So the first thing I'm going to do, just go ahead and do this by hand again. I'm just going to hand turn this. Kind of starting at both ends where I had the thread at. And I'll start just laying that down on top of the gold leaf, or in this case, the variegated leaf. And again, I'm just lightly touching it with my brush, just helping that that finish move around on this leaf. Not applying a lot of pressure, not making a lot of heavy strokes, if you will. Just manually turning it, moving that finish around. And again, just taking my time, not trying to be in a rush. Make sure you set aside, a few minutes to do this. Nice and slow. Of course, you could have this on the dryer as you're doing it. That would make it a little bit easier. But, as you guys seen in videos before, I like to do it this way by hand. And then I can move it over to the dryer when I'm ready. All right, so just very lightly applying this finish. And you can see once you start applying that finish, you get some good color. So as you see, once you start applying this finish, that finish starts bringing out some of that color a little bit more, making it a little bit more richer. When you put that color preserver on, it almost gives it, when it's dry, it almost gives it like a dull hue to it, just a little bit. But as soon as you start applying your finish, you can see that color really start to pop within your foil, or your leaf, and really start to come alive and give you some really good colors. So again, just taking my time, not taking it easy on here, not a heavy hand, not being very forceful with the brush, right? I'm just applying the finish and then trying to move it around like we did with the color preserver. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments block so far. And again, if you're just joining, everything that you need to get started and trying and applying gold leaf or variegated leaf is down in the description below. There's links down there where you can pick these items up at. Okay, and that's really it. So my next step will be we'll get this on the dryer and we'll let this first coat of finish go ahead and cure up and dry. And then we'll come back and then get ready with our next step. All right, so we'll see you when we come back. Welcome back, guys. So now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap off with this Hinton ST wrap, persimmons wrap. And we're going to place these threads, or the black threads that I have here. This is what it looks like. And you can get this thread. I'll have a link for it down in the video description. You can get it from Amazon, and so it'll be down there, and you can go ahead and pick it up. It comes in a box of, I think, about 10 different colors. It's the metallic zebra, and there's some pretty interesting colors. So I'll have some more videos on those here in the future. So what I want to do is I'm going to knock down these little spots on the thread with a razor to try to kind of level those out, any bumps that I have, before I go ahead and start applying my thread or my overwraps on top of these black wraps here. So I'm just going through, knocking off, again, you know, any bubbles that might have popped up through the top, or any thread pieces, you know, sticking through. And then once I've got that done, we're going to go ahead and set up the wrapper. Then the next thing I like to do is go ahead and take a piece of masking tape and lay that down. That's going to help give me a straight edge with my thread, give me something to, you know, bump my thread up against. And the reason why I'm doing it down here on the far end is because there's a slight slope that's created. And so I'm just going to wrap this thread upwards versus going down the wrap, because from the left to the right and the right to the left, you know, as you work inward, there's a slight, you know, ramp, if you will, created by the thread, the black thread and the epoxy going onto the gold leaf. So I'm just going to start this wrap here. We'll get this going. Pull my tag end. Then we'll just start wrapping. Burnish, or, you know, using my burnishing tool here, try to help keep my threads together. And then we'll go ahead and cut this tag in. And then we'll just keep wrapping. So now we're going to go ahead and finish off this wrap here. Got my, you know, my black thread through there. So loosen up the tension on my tension rod. I'll cut this thread. And then we'll go ahead and pass this through the loop, and then we'll tie this part here off. Got a little pull. Use a burnishing tool, kind of dress everything up a little bit. Nice, neat finish. And then after we finish this part here, kind of pushing these threads up. Okay. Yeah, tighten that up right there. And I think these colors, this persimmons color really matches this variegated leaf. So we're going to go ahead and cut this tag off in. Burnish that down just a little bit. And pull this tape off. Gives me a nice, neat, straight edge. And again, I think this persimmons color hitting the thread looks really good. A good combination with this variegated leaf, or your gold leaf here. So now I'm just going to put this tape on this end. And then we're just going to kind of repeat the same steps. Start down close by the tape, and then wrap over that black thread, or the finish over this black thread here. And again, the reason why I'm doing that is, you know, some of the gold leaf or variegated leaf, you know, might have gotten stuck to that black thread. So when we put the finish over it, plus this color, again, this persimmons color just matches better. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. You know, pack that thread a little bit with our burnishing tool, give it a little tug, and then we'll cut this tag end off. Oops. There we go. Cut that little piece off there. Just burnish, and then we'll take the tape off. All right, and then that's what we look like. So now what we want to do is we want to get ready to apply our finish. And as you can see here, this persimmons metallic zebra thread that we got going on here. I think looks really well. The colors blend really good. I think it's a good option to use with this style of variegated leaf, if you will. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get ready to apply some finishers. I've already have my flex coat mixed up, and then what I'm going to do is just start, again, hand turning this while I apply it. Just my technique, but you can put it on a power wrapper if you like, but I just like to do it this way. And so I'm just starting on the threads initially here and kind of bringing it over onto the variegated leaf, and then I'll come back over here to the other side and go on these threads, get a coat on top of this. And as I apply the finish, it slightly darkens the metallic thread, but I think, I think it's a good choice here using this persimmons color on this variegated leaf. So now I'm just going to go ahead and start, making sure I got a good coat over the threads and kind of start moving it over the variegated leaf, or basically applying the second coat of finish to the variegated leaf. And here, I don't necessarily need to be as gentle or, slow about it like I was when we were putting the first coat of finish on the variegated leaf, because we've had this first coat on, it's protected. So now we're just going through and adding this second coat, and getting a good coat on here to level everything out and tie everything and make everything look really good. So getting kind of close to the middle, a little bit more. There we go. Almost getting towards the end here. All right. And kind of start right here in the end and start working back towards the middle. All right. So like I said here, I can just kind of make longer strokes with the brush, kind of leveling everything out a little bit, making sure I have a good coat of finish on here. Again, back here, you see that thread is soaking up the finish a little bit. And again, start leveling it out a little bit here with the brush, a little bit longer strokes. You can see I like to, once I have the finish on, I like to work in both directions, just kind of making sure I have good coverage and as level as possible before we put the heat to it, and then get it on the dryer. Yep, so it looks pretty good. I'm just checking to see if there's any spots I might have missed. Yep, right here. Just level this back out again. A little bit right here. And just making sure these threads have a good coat. And then blend that in a little bit. All right, I think this is looking pretty good. Oh, right here. All right, we'll set that aside. And so I think this looks really good. Again, this is how you apply a variegated leaf or gold leaf to your rod. I hope you guys are able to get some use out of this video. And please, please feel free to share the video with someone that you think that might find it useful. And make sure you hit the like button and leave a comment below and let me know what you think of the video and how things went, or if you have any questions about the process, and I'll be sure to answer them. So make sure you guys watch this next video here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, guys, take care.